Hari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Pranamhamsa Parivrajikacharya Astotra Shatashi Shrimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anandakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sukho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogo Prinav Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mahapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Yamuna Maya Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees and those who will watch the recording. Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So I'll share my screen now, like this. There we go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, reading from Bhagavad-gita 1:15. Panchajanya Hrishikesho Devadatam Dhananjaya Pondram Dadmau Mahar Shankam Bhima Karma Vrikodaraha. So let's read the word by word today. Panchajanyam, the conch shell named Panchajanya, Rishika Ishaha, Rishikesha, Krishna, the Lord who directs the senses of the devotees. Devadatam, the conch shell named Devadatta. Dhanam Jayaha, Dhananjaya, Arjuna, the winner of wealth. Paundram, the conch named Paundra. Dadmo, blue. Mahashankam, Shankam, the terrific conch shell. Bhimakarma, one who performs Herculean tasks. Vrika Udaraha, the voracious eater, Bhima. Translation. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his conch shell called Paundra. Just put a little bit more light on the subject here. There we go. Right. So I think we can see it all okay. I'll just move this over a little bit. There we go. All right. Lord Krishna is referred to as Hrishikesha in this verse because he is the owner of all senses. The living entities are part and parcel of him, and therefore The senses of the living entities are also part and parcel of his senses. The impersonalists cannot account for the senses of the living entities, and therefore they are always anxious to describe all living entities as senseless or impersonal. The Lord, situated in the hearts of all living entities, directs their senses, but he directs in terms of the surrender of the living entity. And in the case of a pure devotee, he directly controls the senses. Here, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Lord directly controls the transcendental senses of Arjuna, and thus his particular name of Hrishikesha. The Lord has different names according to his different activities. For example, his name is Madhusudana because he killed the demon of the name Madhu. His name is Govinda because he gives pleasure to the cows and to the senses. His name is Vasudeva because he appeared as the son of Vasudeva. His name is Devaki Nandana because he accepted Devaki as his mother. His name is Yashodanandana because he awarded his childhood pastimes to Yashoda at Vrindavan. His name is Parthasarathi because he worked as charioteer of his friend Arjuna. Similarly, his name is Hrishikesha because he gave direction to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna is referred to as Dhananjaya in this verse because he helped his elder brother in fetching wealth when it was required by the king to make expenditures for different sacrifices. Similarly, Bhima is known as Vrikodara because he could eat as voraciously as he could perform Herculean tasks, such as killing the demon Hidimba. So the particular types of conch shells blown by the different personalities on the side of the Pandavas, beginning with the lords, were all very encouraging to the fighting soldiers. On the other side, there were no such credits, nor the presence of Lord Krishna, the supreme director, nor that of the goddess of fortune. So they were predestined to lose the battle. And that was the message announced by the sounds of the conch shells. Chakshu Amritam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachayane Nisha Shunyavadi Prashtatade Shatayane Panchajanyam Hrishikesho Devadatam Dhananjayaha Paundram Dadmao Mahashankam Bhima Karma Vrikodaraha. Okay. So yeah, it's very nice poetry that's written here. It's describing the Panchajanya was blown by Rishikesh, the Devadatta by Dhananjaya, and the Paundram was blown, the great conch shell was blown by Bhima, the performer of great acts and who has a great appetite. So we can see that this purport of Prabhupada, he's explaining the meaning of names. Names are not just some arbitrary sound that's made up just to identify something. It has a particular meaning, and in these names of Lord Krishna, we can see they're all in relationship, his relationships. We can see that, Madhusudan, he killed the Madhu demon. Govinda, his relationship with the cows. Vasudeva, Devaki, Yashoda, all of these names are in relationship to his devotees. Parthasarathi. And then, of course, the name Hrishikesh is describing his... so these are called primary names, actually. The names which are specifically talking about Krishna and his relationship to his personal devotees. Arjuna, Devaki, Vasudeva, and so on. These are described as primary names, and the secondary names are the ones which are more about his majesty and opulence, like Rishikesha. He controls the senses. But still, even these secondary names, they're wonderful, because Prabhupada's explaining here that when they describe that he controls the senses, we understand he controls everybody's senses, but specifically Prabhupada is talking about how Krishna takes care of his devotees, that he particularly takes charge of the senses of the devotees and guides them according to their degree of surrender. So we may wonder, oh, why is it that my senses are so out of control? Why doesn't Krishna take care? Then we can analyze our life and see how much are we surrendering. See, ultimately, in material situations, and also endeavoring to become spiritually situated, we're not under control. In one sense, the demigods are directly controlling all of our senses and everything about what we do. Even the blinking of our eyelids is outside of our control. In one sense, it's controlled by the demigods. We like to think that I am independent because I can lift my arm, I can blink my eyes, I can open my mouth. Sometimes we can't. When we're asleep, we're not able to do these things. Our body becomes like paralyzed. People that have accidents, they can't open their eyes, they can't speak, they can't move. So this independence that we feel that we have, it's actually, we don't really have independence. We have been given a certain amount of freedom. We've been given this body. And sometimes, according to our karma and according to the desire of the demigods and Krishna, our freedom to move, or our freedom to see or hear or taste, these different things can be taken away at any time. So what freedom do we really have? Ultimately, the freedom that we have is which way do we turn our consciousness? As a jiva, we're described as tatastha shakti. We can either turn towards Krishna or we can turn to the material energy. This is ultimately our choice at every moment. So if we can train ourselves to turn to Krishna, even if sometimes we may glance at the material energy, we just redirect our consciousness back. This is the process of japa, is a mind, training the mind to be focused on Krishna and to neglect the material world. And so gradually, over time, we begin to see Krishna in everything and dedicate our entire life and all of our senses towards him. And the more that we surrender, the more that Krishna takes care of us to guide us in what is the right way to speak, the right way to act, the right way to eat, and so on. Every aspect of our senses, Krishna takes charge. And how does he do it? He does it in different ways, through Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. We can study these books, Bhagavad-gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so on. And in these books, it describes how to live, how to eat, how to speak, how to live our life. And then we get direct guidance from the spiritual master and the sadhus. And then we also get inspiration from within the heart as the Chaitya Guru, the super soul. The more that we devote ourselves to serving Krishna through whatever means we can, taking advantage of these books, taking advantage of the spiritual master and the sadhus, then the more Krishna will directly reveal himself to us in the heart also. And he'll make arrangements for us. So just like I was saying, how we don't really have very much control even over our own body. There's so many things in the world we don't have control over. But when we surrender to Krishna, he can make wonderful arrangements for his service. And if you're facing a challenge and a difficulty and you pray to Krishna, surrender to Krishna, give great attention to Krishna through our japa, kirtan, deity worship, and so on. All of these things. If we surrender and really pray to Krishna and have that mood of serving Krishna and desiring to help, help his mission and to serve, then Krishna can make the arrangements to help us overcome the problems that may come in the way. So this is the great blessing of Lord Krishna as Rishikesha. So again, coming back to these names, we can see that the real essence of life is not impersonal. It's all about relationships. And we can see Krishna gives pleasure to the cows. That gives us a clue that if we want to please Krishna, we have to be favorable to the cows. It's not going to work if we claim to be a lover of God at the same time we kill cows, to eat them or whatever. And the more that we can actually support cow protection, the more pleasing it will be to Krishna. And I think that in our Krishna consciousness society, devotees have been endeavoring in this way for many years. But I think overall as a society, it's an area that has a lot of room for development. And particularly in the times that are coming with food shortages and things like that, we'll become more and more dependent on the cow and the bull. The bull is often neglected because we think we don't get milk from the bull. After all, milk is what we're after. But actually, when the motor car civilization is finished, as Prabhupada has predicted, what fuel will we be getting? I was listening to a astrologer, Abhigya. He's a Vaishnava from South India, I think. And he's lived in other countries like Australia, homeschooled, very intelligent young man. And he was talking about that according to astrology, we are moving into a new phase where previously that energy was gained from under the ground, like coal and oil. Now the indication is that the energy will be coming from above the ground. And he's talking, sustainable types of energy like wind and solar energy could be one of those things. And it occurred to me that actually, what about the bull? Bull power. The bull has so much to offer in terms of tilling the land, also providing cow dung to fertilize the land and as a fuel for cooking. So in so many ways, the bull provides wonderful service to humanity. And it's completely sustainable type of living as well. It's not like, petrol, which is using up the scarce resources of the earth by mining, essentially. And it's not also, electric vehicles. We think, okay, well, let's not use petrol cars, let's use electric cars. But then they have batteries, and those batteries, these days at least, depend on lithium from the earth. So again, it depends on mining, causes pollution and so on. So all these different kind of technological solutions have all got a downside. However, cow protection is an amazing technology, very ancient and sustainable technology that is a real wealth. There's an interesting article, I think something along the lines of more kale and less bull by a devotee. I think his name is Tapapunja Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple, that's been doing cow protection for many years. And he was making the point that, the idea of cow protection is not that we just keep a few cows for show as a way of, attracting donations, or like virtue signaling. Oh, look how we're protecting cows. But no, actually, cows need to be an integral part of our economy. and our way of living. And that when we focus on producing our own food, then we will really value the cows. If you just put the cows out to pasture, they're just, eating grass. Then we think, okay, we get some milk. But then we think, what will we do with the bulls? But when you start with the focus on growing your own food, like kale or broccoli or whatever, then the value of the cow dung, immediately, we appreciate it. We also appreciate the value of the bull in tilling the land. And so in this way, we have this holistic understanding. And this is what Prabhupada wanted. He didn't just want us to go down to the supermarket to buy our food and then just keep a few cows for show. He wanted us to live off the land, literally. And just with a few cows, we can have natural, unprocessed, unhomogenized milk the way that it's meant to be, much more healthy than the milk that you get from the supermarket. We get the cow dung, we get the labor to till the land, and therefore the food that grows is very natural. It's fertilized with cow dung, not artificial chemicals. And so in this way, the human and cow work together to create, a wonderful situation for society. And of course, we get the milk and the amazing things that come from it, like ghee for sacrifice. And this creates a cycle also, that with that ghee, we can do sacrifice for Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, in the form of offering food, as well as fire sacrifices. And it's this yajna which actually creates the auspiciousness, which provides the abundance of food, rain, and so on. Again, we're not in control. The weather is not that much under our control, although it's possible there may be some weather manipulation going on. But aside from these unnatural things, if we can just please Krishna, he will take care of the weather for us, which will help us to grow nice food for our own sustenance and for offering to Krishna. And in this way, there's harmony with everybody. Yeah, so this was the premise of this devotee tapapunja, that if we just put our focus on growing our own food, then naturally cow protection will be an integral part of that. It won't just be something that's kind of like an expense on the side. So very interesting subject. So yeah, I just saw the word cows in Govinda and I immediately thought of this. Another interesting thing that I thought of here is one of the names for Arjuna is Dhananjaya. And I think this is quite interesting, that he helped his elder brother in fetching wealth when it was required. So, as devotees, our goal is not to become rich for our own sense gratification, but when it's required for Krishna's service, for certain classes of society, it's needed. It's a service to get wealth. And we can see that devotees in the past have spent much of their energy and life getting resources to serve Lord Krishna, to build his temples, print his books, whether it was through life membership programs, directly selling Prabhupada's books, or even some indirect businesses when necessary. This is also service to the Lord. Of course, as Brahmanas, the more that we can align our income with direct service of the Lord, like through book distribution, or different programs for preaching, then the better. But there's some people, they just love to make money. And so for those devotees, Prabhupada said, go for it. We need resources for our society. So you put your energy into that and you give it to Krishna. And that would be a very nice service. So there's different services for different people. Also, just previously, just backtracking a little bit here, when we were talking about Rishikesha and how when we do our japa, it's a great way to train the mind. Another way that we can surrender to Krishna is by distributing books. with anyone that's tried it has had the experience when you go on the street and you try to stop people and you try to interest them in taking a book. Immediately the mind becomes inflamed, I would say. It's like, oh, what if no one wants to take the books? Oh, that person looks a bit ugly. Oh, that person spoke to me roughly and now I'm all upset. It's like, oh, I'm feeling sleepy. I should be doing something else. So just like in our japa, book distribution is a wonderful, intense practice that helps us to confront our mind and train ourselves, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, to beat the mind with the broomstick and with shoes. And so this type of service is wonderful for training ourselves through whatever the mind puts in front of us to, I'm focusing on Krishna. I'm going to do my service. So, it just came to mind again in the discussion. And that as we surrender, then Lord Krishna creates wonderful arrangements. So another thing, again, like we talked about Arjuna here, he was collecting wealth. So in the same way, Bhima, he was a big eater. So we read in Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction, Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udaropasta Vegam. That we have to control our senses, including the Udaram, the belly. And here it says that Bhima had a belly like a wolf. It was always hungry. So this again just points out that everything is individual in Krishna consciousness. What suits one person may not suit another. So, for Bhima to be, a very renounced, like a ascetic, living on 5 chickpeas a day for breakfast or whatever, it's not going to work. So instead, he would eat voraciously and he would go out like a hero. Just like if someone wants to be a bodybuilder and wants to be really strong, they have to eat a lot. Just like the animals that work in the fields, they eat a lot of grass. They need to eat a lot to be strong. So in the same way, Bhima, his service was as a warrior, a mace fighter, and he did many amazing things, killing demons and fighting in battle. And in order to do so, he needed to eat very well. Whereas for others, we need to be careful not to eat too much. And then the ultimate conclusion here is that I'll just see what it says in the previous verse. We just go back to the translations. You can see the sequence here. So, first of all, the Pandava, Kauravas, blew their conches. First it was Bhishma, and Duryodhana was thinking, nice, this is good. And then all the other conch shells and drums, bugles, and things were sounded by the Kaurava army. But then when the Pandavas did it, it was a different experience, and we will hear about that coming up now. That when the Kauravas, Duryodhana's warriors, heard the conch shell of the Pandava side, it shattered their hearts. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit. But the point is raised in this purport as well, that when these conch shells were blown, especially you imagine Lord Krishna blowing his conch shell, how auspicious that would be. And because the Pandavas were on the side of Dharma, naturally having Lord Krishna on their side, and he blowing his conch shell, that transcendental sound is immediately an omen of success for the Pandavas and defeat for the Kauravas. It's also mentioning about the goddess of fortune, who's always present with Lord Krishna. something just popped into my mind there. We often hear of like a Lakshmi conch, and I'm not sure what that means, but perhaps this goddess of fortune mentioned here has got some connection to, these the conch shell that Lord Krishna was blowing. I'm not 100% on that. But certainly we know that wherever Lord Krishna is, the goddess of fortune will be there. In fact, this verse is setting us up for the last verse of the Bhagavad-gita, because the name Dhananjaya is mentioned here. And the very last verse of the Bhagavad-gita also mentions Dhananjaya. So let's jump to the last verse of the Bhagavad-gita, because we can, with this technology we have here, and see what it says. Right, there we go. So, I'll just get it up here. So it says here, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanudara, Yatra Sri Vijaya Bhutir, Dhruva Nitya Matir Mama. Okay, so yeah, I was remembering it a little bit wrong. Dhananjaya was mentioned in the verse we were looking at previously, and in this one it's mentioning Dhanudara. So it's a different name for Arjuna. However, the point is still the same, that wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. And this Yoga Ishwara, master of mysticism, is not too different from the word Rishikesh, because a yogi is one who is able to control the senses and connect them to Krishna. And Lord Krishna is the master of those senses. So we can see how these verses are connecting up, and Prabhupada's giving reference here that it is certain that there will be victory for the Pandavas because of the presence of Lord Krishna, and therefore the goddess of fortune, and along with Arjuna, his devotee, that all the auspicious things will be there. So this is the beginning of the beginning of the battle, and already we can see the individuality of these different personalities. We can also see the importance of Lord Krishna and his relationships with his devotees, and that as long as the devotees surrender to Rishikesh, surrender their will to the Lord, then he takes charge of their senses and guarantees their success in his service. Yeah, so I'll end here. I'm not sure how long I spoke for, but I'll just keep it a little short today, and I hope that the comments that were made today are helpful and give you some inspiration to take every opportunity to turn your mind to the service of Krishna, to neglect the rascal mind when it tries to bring up mundane things, when it gets in the way of our service. And have faith that when we surrender to Krishna, no matter how fallen we may feel we are, no matter what nonsense we may have in our mind, and whatever challenges may come, whatever difficulties we have in our life, Lord Krishna will support us and help us to serve him. It's just up to us to show to him that we really desire it, and then he will help us to do everything. All right, so at the end here, Granth Srimad Bhagavad-gita as it is. Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.